So I think we can get started now. So I'm just going to welcome you all again. So welcome everyone to the live online botanical workshop for adults with the Beatty Festival, and this is called Interdependence with Ida Mitrani. My name is Heidi, and myself and my colleague Justina will be in the background if you need any assistance. If you have any problems or issues that you need Ida to repeat or slow down anything, please pop that into the Q&A. As I mentioned, this workshop is part of the Beatty Festival, so we are delighted to have Monica Flynn joining us from the festival, who'll give you a little bit of information about it and introduce our artist today. Monica?
Hi, thanks so much, Heidi, and a warm hello on behalf of Beatty Festival, brought to you by Age and Opportunity, which is, I suppose, founded to celebrate creativity as we grow older. We are brought to you with the support of our funders, the Arts Council and the HSE, and we're delighted to partner on this occasion with Chester Beatty with this event as part of our Roots and Shoots series of events with venues throughout Ireland. Thanks so much to Jenny, Justina and Heidi at Chester Beatty, and to Ida for all your enthusiasm and engagement with the Beatty Festival theme of interdependence, which draws on ideas of our reliance on each other as humans, but also giving attention to our place within the arts ecology. I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful artist Ida Mitrani, whose beautiful work I've had the pleasure of knowing over many years. And Ida brings a deep interest in botanical forms and ecological concerns to her work, working through drawing, mixed media, installation, and more. And the Chester Beatty is such a wonderful resource and source of inspiration that she can draw on for this work today. I hope you enjoy your time with Ida this afternoon. And if you'd like to avail of any other Bealtaine Festival events, please do check our website, bealtaine.ie. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Monica, and thanks, Heidi. Can you all see me? Yes?
Yes.
So welcome everyone, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you all to run the Botanical and Collage workshop. So basically the workshop is divided into a couple of sections. So we will be starting with pencils, and I will be doing a short introduction to pencils and how to use graphite pencils. Then we will also be looking at the different techniques used in botanical drawing. We will be doing some shading exercises. And then we will be taking the image that you've all received, and we will be drawing, tracing and transferring the image onto paper. Then the second part, we will do a bit of a watercolor painting. For those who don't have watercolor, you can use your acrylic paints. So again, same thing, we will be looking at different techniques and starting with tonal stripe. Then we will be creating our own greens using blue and yellow. So you'll be designing a color grid. And then after that, we'll be painting the plant. And then third part, and this is when the fun starts, we will be doing some collage and cutouts and just change our plants. So I will be switching my camera, and please feel free to comment in the chat box. If you have any questions, just send your questions and I will reply to the questions. So I'm switching now. Here we go. So just moving. Okay, so hopefully you can all see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to zoom in here. See, okay, so you can see on the left of the screen here, I've designed what we call a value scale or a tonal stripe. So I'm using a pencil, which is an HB. So I don't know if you're all familiar with your pencils, but HB would be the middle grade pencil. So everything that goes towards the H, like 2H, 3H, 4H, 5H, going up to 6, 7, 8H, this is when the lead is much drier, okay? And then you can create much lighter and drier surface using this pencil. Now, if you're going towards the bees, the graphite is much softer and it becomes also darker. So this one, I mean, the HB is very handy to use if you want to draw some outlines. And I also use the 3H to cover darker surfaces to soften the surface of the paper. Okay, so there is one specific technique that we use in botanical art, and it's doing small ellipses. As you can see here, when you're working with pencils, and it's the same with acrylic paints, oil paints, or colored pencils, you are working from dark to mid-tones to light, okay? As opposed to watercolor, where you are working from light to mid-tones to dark, okay? So for this exercise, if you have your ruler with you, I'm going to ask you to draw 6 little squares, about 1 by 1 centimeter. Okay, for those who have, I'm using usually this template, it's very handy. You've got the squares, the circles. If you don't want to draw squares, it's fine. You can draw circles or triangles, it doesn't matter. Okay, so once you're ready, I'm going to show you the exercise. So basically the reason why we're using the small ellipses is to fully cover the grain or the tube of the paper to create a completely soft and smooth surface. And that's the reason why we are using the hot pressed watercolor paper or the smooth cartridge paper. The paper doesn't have any texture. It's up to you to create the texture. As opposed to, for example, for those who are familiar with watercolor painting, you also have cold pressed, which is also called knot, or rough, which has a lot of texture. But that type of paper is not recommended for botanical art. Okay, so hopefully everybody is ready to go. Don't worry if you don't have all the squares, you can always catch up. So what I'm going to do is do a zoom in, move my page so you can see closely what I'm doing. Is the screen okay, Heidi? Monica, yeah?
That looks great, yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So, as you can see here, so you've got your square here, and what I'm going to do is leave a tiny little gap, okay? I don't want to start too close to the edge because I might get out of the outline here. So what you do is hold your pencil close to the tip of the pencil, and then just gradually do tiny little ellipses like this, okay? Lean on the paper, but try not to lean too much on the paper. You don't want to go through the paper either, okay? So I actually find those exercises very relaxing, and it's going to be the same when we are going to work with the collage charts. And usually when I do that with my students, there is no sound at all, and everybody is really quiet. So now, as you can see, I'm trying to keep the circles together and merge the pencil marks together, okay? So don't worry too much if it's not even. We are going to apply a couple of layers, and we're also going to change the direction of the pencil at some stage. Now, what you can also do, if you're not comfortable working this way, you can also tilt the page if you're more comfortable, okay? Just find a position where you're fully comfortable. And then what you can do is you can tidy up gradually as you come close to the edge of the paper, very lightly like this. There you go. So how many of you is familiar with botanical illustration or botanical art? Have you ever done that or practice at all?
We have a comment in. Carol would like to know if she could see the circle directions again. She missed the circle. It was just back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can see, I can zoom in a little bit more here. Just going to move my page. So basically, as you can see, there are tiny little circles. Okay, avoid doing circles like this. Okay, you don't want that. You don't want to see the outline. The circles are really, really small. They're so small you can't see them. And that's the best way to get a smooth surface. Okay. So I'm just going basically in and out, in and out. Now. And then I'm just going to change direction with my pencil here. So the other thing is always work with well-sharpened pencils, okay? Yeah, and then as you come closer to the edges, just tidy up again.
And we have some first-time watercolor users. Jane is one of them. I would be one of them as well. I don't use watercolor myself at all.
Oh, it's the most difficult medium to use, so no pressure at all. It takes years to master it, but it's the quality is amazing. You can achieve those beautiful transparent glazes. And the good thing about watercolor paints is you just need a tiny bit, and once they dry, you can use them again. Now, as you can see, I'm just going to finish this square here and then tidy up. Let me know if I'm going too fast, okay? And I slow down. And if you have any comments, please ask the questions. Just tidy up here. So as you can see here, I can still see some pencil marks, but this is normal. You will never achieve a nice and smooth surface with the first layer, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly tidy up. As you can see, I'm using my pencil. You see my hand is slightly further back, which means that allows me to apply lighter layers. So what I'm doing now is basically I'm trying to fill in the gaps. If needed, if you want to apply another much darker layer, then you can do the same exercise again, but just much lighter. If you apply too much pressure on the paper, you will see, you might see the fiber of the paper coming off. Okay, so just be very careful with that. That's why I'm using my pencil this way for the second layer, just to tidy up. Okay, so this is my first layer. Okay, so then what we need to do is to create the second square. So the second square is basically off black, which means it's slightly lighter than the first one. Okay, so what you can do is hold the pencil the same way, but I'm just going to slightly move my hand a little bit further back, which will allow me to create a lighter line. Okay, so same idea.
And we have a couple of questions coming in, Ida.
Okay.
First of all, is this a graphite pencil?
Yes, so I'm using here the Faber-Castell 9000. I mean, as you know, there are so many different brands. This one here is really, I mean, I use it a lot. It's a warm graphite. However, what you can do is, I mean, I also use brands like Staedtler or Derwent, and the graphite is much cooler and darker. So I like mixing both together. And it also depends on your subject. So for example, if you are going to draw a subject like, for example, a really dark ivy leaf, you will need to use deeper and cooler pencils in order to achieve much deeper tones.
Yeah. And is this the HB pencil that you're using?
I am using the HB, but It doesn't matter. If you have another pencil, use another pencil. The main thing is basically this exercise is about creating different tone using only one pencil. So if you don't have HB, you can use any other pencils. Now, for those who are using darker pencils like 4B or 5B, you will see that because the effect is much softer, it's much more difficult to cover the full surface of the paper. So you will have to apply a few layers.
And then also, what type of paper is best for pastel? So what type of paper is best? I'm using pastel paper. So
pastel paper, okay. I don't use pastels at all, but there are some, I know that there are some specific papers for pastels, but they're much thinner. So I wouldn't use the paper, this paper for botanical, unless you want to create a floral painting using pastels. But for botanical illustration, which is half art and half science, I wouldn't use pastels at all. So I'm just tidying up here, getting closer to the edge of the square. So very lightly. Here. Okay. And then same thing. So what I'm going to do, see, I've moved my hand again further back, and just very lightly, I'm just going to fill in the gaps. It's like adding a thin glaze on top of the surface of the paper. Okay. Just to achieve a smooth surface. Okay. Now, so once we've done this, we are going to move to the third square. So again, you can move your hand slightly, further back, and then same thing. So just very lightly. If, for example, you see that your second square is as dark as your first square, so what you need to do is go back to your first square and apply another layer to make it darker. Okay. Now, same thing, just tiny little ellipses here. Now, is everybody from Ireland? Anybody's coming from another country or? And if you're all from Ireland, which part of Ireland are you from?
The wilds of Kildare.
The wilds of Kildare. Well, the sun is shining here in Dunleary.
We're a bit cloudy today, but not too bad. Okay. But I can see we have someone in Brussels. Carol's oh, we have someone in Northern California. Carol, so jealous. What is the weather like there, Carol? And then loads of Dublin.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, Southern California sounds so exotic for us.
We have some Galway, but originally from Germany. That's Wiltrud.
Hello.
Westmeath, Kilkenny. Oh, Maureen. Hello, Maureen. Skibbereen. And Magella would like to know, can she use cartridge paper for this section?
Yeah, you can use cartridge paper as long as it's smooth, but yeah, cartridge paper is perfect for it.
Great. Oh, and we have upstate New York. Oh, dear. So jealous. So for the person who is in Skibbereen, I'm not too far. I actually live in the Barrow Peninsula. I'm only here for a month, so I live in Ardgroom. So I don't know if you've been to Ardgroom before. Tiny little village. Now I'm just going to tidy up the surface of the third square. And what I'm going to do, I can see a difference, but I'm just going to apply another layer here on the second square to make it slightly darker. Okay. Phil would like to know, could they use some colored pencils for this?
Yeah, if you want to. I also teach botanical art with colored pencils. So what type of pencils are you using, Phil? The brand? No? The best colored pencils, I mean, there are some really good colored pencils, but the ones that I use are the polychromos Faber-Castell. They're absolutely amazing. They're oil-based as opposed to wax-based, and the greens are fabulous. You've got some really realistic greens in the set. Okay, so now let's move on to the fourth square. I just want to keep an eye on the time because I know we've got a lot to cover today. So I'm just going to move on to the fourth square, and then we just finished this exercise, and we are going to start working with the circle using 2 pencils. So here again, I've moved my hand back just to apply the layers lightly. No.
So Teresa would like to know, what is the purpose of doing this with the shading of the squares?
The purpose of this exercise, well, basically you're learning how to better control your pencil, and how to create different tones with only one pencil. Sorry. So when you're drawing or when you're shading a plant or any subject, you will have to create your dark, mid-tones and lighter tones, and work around the white of the paper, which are your highlights. The other thing is, it's very important to start working with your pencils before working with your paints, because you get a better understanding of your subject, and also you get a better understanding of the texture you're working with. Okay. Yeah, and then same thing, I'm going to apply another layer on the third square. So the final square, I mean, obviously you could add a few more squares in between, but this one is the most difficult to achieve because it's off-white. Okay, so the last one is pure white. This one is off-white. So as you can see here, my hand is much further back here. So what I'm going to do is very lightly, just gonna work with little ellipses again. And you should barely see the surface. You should barely see the layers. Okay, so really, really lightly. There we go. So no botanical artists among us? No. Yeah. And then what I do is just going to tidy up around the edges, very lightly.
We have, I think we have a couple of botanical artists. Well, Gabrielle says not yet, but hopefully soon. We also have a question from Louise. Do you ever use the colored pencils for botanical in illustration? Oh, English.
The colored pencils?
Yeah.
Yes, so like I mentioned, I also teach botanical art with colored pencils. So there are many, many artists who are using the colored pencils. I mean, the brands you can use, the main brands are the polychromos, and there are other brands you can use, but the brands that I prefer using are those ones, the Faber-Castell ones. In the States, they're mainly using the Prismacolor which are wax-based. I'm not too comfortable using wax-based pencils. I prefer the oil-based one. Okay, so let's move on to our next exercise. So I've used my little template here to create a circle. If you don't have this template, you can use a €1 coin, €2 coin, or whatever coins you have. And if not, you can do another square. I mean, I prefer using a sphere for this exercise, or you can just draw very quickly a sphere. Don't worry too much if it's not perfect, okay? You're not a computer. Now, so I'm going to use 2 pencils. I know in your list you've got 2B and HB. So what I'm going to do is start with my 2B, which is the darker pencil. And then I'll be using the HB. For those who don't have an HB, you can also use a 2H or a 3H. Okay, so the idea here is to first identify the light source. So my light source here is coming from the right side, meaning that the left side of the sphere doesn't see the light at all. So what you're doing is you're transferring this onto the sphere. Okay, so let's start. So same thing here. What you're going to do is leave a tiny little gap. So just a tiny gap, not even a millimeter, and then just gradually apply your tiny little ellipses and follow the shape of the sphere. Okay. And again, lean a little bit more on the surface of the paper to achieve a darker effect. And as I come closer to the top of the circle, just going to come closer to the edge here. Okay. Sorry, Heidi, can you give me the time, please?
We are exactly 4:30.
And we're finishing at 5:30.
Yep, so about an hour left. But you take your time. If we run a little bit over, that's okay.
Okay, it will happen.
People can make a cup of tea.
Yes. No break. You have to work really hard. Okay, so then once you've applied the darker layer here, what you do is just ease off the pressure of the pencil here and just create a slightly lighter gray. Okay. Is everybody okay with this technique? I mean, it is, if you're not used to this technique, it is a bit strange. It doesn't feel natural. It takes a while to get used to it. And I have to be very careful because the paper I'm using is kind of, the fiber is lifting, so I have to be very careful here.
It's lovely. It's so therapeutic looking, because I know when you have like the adults coloring books, like you can get them in all sorts of designs and intricate designs, and even just learning this technique for coloring, it's really, really handy. You can make some beautiful designs.
Yeah, no, you're right, Heidi. I mean, it's so relaxing, and sometimes I don't know how many times I've created those, you know, tonal stripes, or even the color charts. I just, you know, there are times where you don't feel like drawing or working on a final project, and so I just do those exercises to relax. Yeah, no, they're really handy.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a comment in from Jane that it's like mindfulness, so it's very mindful. And I know you can actually get the coloring books for anxiety or coloring books for mindfulness. So yeah, it's exactly this.
Yes, absolutely. I just realized that I was using my HB pencil instead of using my 2B pencil, so that's why I was lifting the paper so much. So I just switched to 2B, and then I will be applying the HB on top. So here we go. Now, as you can see, I'm going back and forth just to tidy up a bit, but you will still get those unwanted lines in between. But this is why we are going to use a second lighter and drier pencil on top. It's just to soften the surface of the paper and just to merge the pencil marks together. So as you come closer to the middle and right side of the sphere here, I know that I need to keep this section here white because this is where the light source hits the paper. However, you don't want to have pure white and then the line of the sphere, okay? It just doesn't look right. So what you can do is use the tip of your pencil here and just very lightly apply a bit of pencil mark in an uneven way, because if you have a straight line, it just looks a bit strange.
And from Carol, what about using your fingertips to smudge or oh dear, Carol, don't say that. Oh.
It's a big no in botanical art. Do not smudge. It has to be super clean and with clean and crisp edges. No smudging.
Carol, you're going to get kicked out now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So as you can see, I'm using the tip of my pencil, my 2B pencil here, just to tidy up. And then I've moved my hand further back, and then I'm just going to create much lighter layers here. Okay.
We have a nice comment in from Monica. One of her art tutors in college used to say to me, clean up those fuzzy lines.
Right.
Like that. Clean up those fuzzy lines. I have a lot of fuzzy lines.
Yeah, it's really like being back at school when you know you have to keep everything in between, within the lines, which is completely opposite to, I mean, for those who are doing any fine art work, you know, it's completely the opposite. You know, you're not free, basically. Everything is so tidy and structured in botanical illustration or botanical art. I mean, you have to be very, very patient.
Yeah, it's actually, there's another comment in from Lynn. One of her art teachers said no itchy or scratchy lines. So it's clearly a thing. And then Maura wants to know, are you consciously keeping in mind the dark to light scale that we've just practiced while doing this?
Yes. So that's why I'm going over now on the left side just to apply a darker layer. So I've got the dark tones here, and then I'm just going off black and then slightly lighter here and then lighter. So you want the tonal changes to be gradual, to make it look more natural, because if you have dark against white or just mid-tones, everything will look flat, okay? So it's by creating the different tones that you create a more three-dimensional effect. Now, so I'm just going to tidy up a little bit more. I'm going to apply a darker tone around the edge here. Okay, then once I've done that, I'm going to grab the HB pencil and just tidy up. Now, can you see, just to go back, on the left side, we left a tiny little edge around the contour line. And the reason why I've done that is to apply a lighter tone. It's just to give the idea that the light is also coming from the back of the sphere, just to make it rounder. Okay. And then we just lightly tidy up here. So as you can see, I'm not using the ellipses anymore. I'm just shading very lightly. Now, for those who have a potty rubber, in case you have covered too much of the white of the paper, what you can do is take a potty rubber. So a potty rubber is a must-have for botanical art. So basically, you can lift the pencil lines without damaging the paper, and also you can soften the pencil line if it's slightly darker without losing the full line. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to shape it a bit better, and then you can lightly lift the pencil marks. Okay. Now, I hope everybody is doing fine, and we just need to move to the next exercise, if that's okay with everyone. So, for those who have the image, and I'll just zoom out a bit. Let me see the page here. Okay. Now, so the image you've got here is actually from the Imperial Mural album. So I picked the tulip, which everyone is familiar with. And the album is called Minto album, and it's created in Agra, which is a town in India. And it was created between the 1630 and 1640, okay? So what I've done here, as you can see, I have a black and white version of it, and I also have a color version of it. Okay, so we are going to ignore the color version here, and then I've got the black and white version here. Again, when you do botanical art, I mean, obviously you're working with a plant, with a real plant, which is much better than working with a flat image. But what you can also do is do your graphite, your pencil exercises. But what you can also do in order to add a bit of drama, or in order to see the different tones, is you can take a photo, a picture of it with your phone, and then just change the saturation into a black and white image, and you will be able to see the different tones to prepare for your colored project, for your colored drawing. Okay. Now, so you have the image here. Now we need to draw this image using a tracing paper, and then we are going to use the tracing paper, and we are going to transfer the image onto our paper. Okay, so for those who don't have the image, or for those who didn't have the time to print it out, just try to draw what you see. And again, don't worry if it's not perfect, it's fine, as long as it looks like a plant. Okay, so as you can see here, I've done my tracing, I've prepared it, but I'm just going to do another one so we can do it together. Okay, so I've got another piece of tracing paper here, and I'm just going to fix it with a, how do you call that? We say trombone in French.
Paperclip, yeah.
Paperclip, yeah. I forgot the words.
Ida, I'm going to butt in for just 1 second, sorry. So some people are saying to us that they will just go and print it out, so they might need another minute or two. Also, okay. Some of the emails bounced back, and I have never asked people to print it out, so I'm sorry, apologies to everybody. But perhaps I can share my screen for a minute or two and actually have this particular image, so those of you who didn't receive it will be able to see. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay, so just give me 1 second, I'll share my screen with everybody. Thank you. You chat away, Ida, and do whatever you need to do as well.
Oh,
I'll be sharing my screen. That's the only thing. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, no problem. So so for this exercise regarding pencils, I mean, you can use a 2B or an HB. It doesn't really matter. It depends on how thick you want the lines to be. Okay, so I'm just going to use my 2B pencil. Again, make sure that the tip of the pencil is really sharp, okay? Just to show you, I'm using this manual pencil sharpener. It's great to have, you know, to get a really sharp result. So you just turn it like this, okay? And then you can get a very sharp end. And you can use this also for your colored pencils. For those who are using colored pencils that are wax-based, be very, very careful when using this because it breaks the lead very quickly, okay? No.
It also does not work for makeup pencils. If anyone wants to sharpen your makeup pencil, don't do it in that. Don't do it in that.
Thanks for the tip, Heidi. Okay, so you can see the image. Can you all see? Or so I guess you can't see my page anymore then. Or can you see both?
In speaker view, you should only be able to see what is on the screen, so they can only see the image at the moment.
So if you don't mind, Ida, I'll keep it for a minute or two. I'll keep it for a minute or two for those people who didn't. So you might want to take a screenshot with your phone, just so you have it, and then Ida will continue. And apologies again, a couple of emails bounced back, unfortunately.
Somebody just made a comment saying that they can see both screens, my screen and your screen, Justina.
Well, I can see it in a little side view, your screen, but it's just a little side view rather than proper kind of instructor's screen, if you know what I mean.
Okay, okay.
Is everybody happy for me to take it down now? If you just want to put in your comments yes or no, or do you want another minute for?
So maybe we give another minute or two.
We're getting all yeses and readies.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll stop now. Back to you, Ida.
Thank you. So tracing paper. So you place your tracing paper on top of the image. If you don't have the black and white image, it doesn't matter at all. Use the colored image, okay? And then I'll be using my 2B pencil. And again, if you want to use the HB, it's fine too. So just very simple drawing. There we go. So the main outlines. And you want the lines to be quite dark, quite obvious, okay? And then the other thing is, when you work on a project, what we're creating now is a study page. So when you work on a specific project, keep everything, even the tracing paper, because you might want to use the tracing paper, your template again. For those, for example, who are interested in creating cards, or it's always handy to have all your notes handy, well, ready to go. For example, take notes when you're creating your color charts, write comments on your page, what pencil you've used, etc. So simple and clean lines. And then where you see the veins or the darker tones, as you can see, I'm just drawing simple curves here, simple lines. It's just to get a feel for the flower here. Yeah. There we go. A few more lines here. And then just draw the full plant. So the stems, and same thing, the veins. So this image is really handy because you can see the lighter and the much darker areas of the plant. So a bit of a tricky question. If you know the answer, you know the answer, but where does the tulip come from? Just curious to see the answers.
The ground.
Which country? Sorry.
I was being a little cheeky.
Logical in my head.
I was being a little cheeky. Oh, we have lots of answers. So Mary says India. Lakshmi, I hope I pronounced your name right. That says Holland. Carol says Turkey. Bernadette says Holland. Oh, thank you, Lakshmi. I did pronounce your name right. Good. Salma says Ireland. Marcel thinks Turkey. Therese thinks Turkey. I know that the film Tulip Fever was all about the cost of tulip bulbs and the frenzy for different variations of tulip, and that was.
Yeah.
So then we
The answer is Turkey.
Ah, Turkey. So all you turkeys, you got it right. Well done, Louise and Marcel.
I don't think so, though. I thought it was somewhere in Asian steppes like Kyrgyzstan or Uzbekistan, and then it moved to Turkey, and then it moved to Holland.
We'll
so I will dispute you here, Ida, I'm afraid.
Of course, I was expecting a comment from you saying, no, actually.
I really think it's from the steppes somewhere.
Okay, well, I was told that it was actually from Turkey. I mean, you can see in the Turkish Iznik design, as you know, there's so many tulips.
Yes, so I think when the Ottomans went and conquered the steppes, they kind of fell in love and then brought it everywhere.
Okay.
But I think, it was originally from the steppes of Central Asia.
Okay, well, we need to check that.
Yes, let's.
Now, so I'm drawing the outlines and the veins for the leaves here, and save around here. Now, I'm just going to finish my full plant. So I guess for those who don't have a printed version of the image, you just need to draw the basic lines, the outlines. Okay. Now, here it's nearly finished. A few more lines here. And I'm going to complete the drawing, the line drawing with the veins here. And then the longer veins and the longer leaf, like this. And oh yeah, I also have a few veins on the petals here, on the smaller tulip. And then I'm just going to finish here, some veins on the main leaf. Okay, so once you've completed the first, this drawing here, what you need to do is take your tracing paper, okay, and then turn it around like this. And then you need to draw over the lines again. Because if you don't, if you take this, the tracing paper this way, and then you draw it on your page, it's just gonna come up the other way around, okay? So that's why you need to draw it this way, and then that way, and then turn it over again, and then place it on your page, like this. Sorry, I have it here. Like this. And then once it's done, just make sure that it's steady on your page, okay? You can use the paper clip again. So fix it on the page here, and then what you need to do is you go over the lines, okay? So what's going to happen is the graphite, the pencil mark that is underneath is going to come on your page here, okay? So I give you all 1 or 2 minutes to do that, because we need this the full plant here in order to paint it, and also in order to do our collage, okay? So just 1 or 2 minutes. And again, what I can do, Heidi, at the meantime, if there are any questions, I can answer the questions while people are drawing.
Nothing in at the moment.
Nothing? Okay. Okay, just gonna move here.
Actually, Ida, if you don't mind, if you're not doing anything, there were some questions in the past about recommendations of coloring pencils, like specific brands. I think you've mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're not actually drawing right now, maybe you can put it in the chat so people can copy.
Okay. Now let me see. Okay.
But if you're drawing, we can do it at the end as well.
Yeah. No, I'll just do it now very quickly. So colored pencils. So it's called Polychromos.
Thank you.
And it's Faber-Castell. Then you also have the Caran d'Ache, which is the Swiss one. It's actually very expensive, but it's Luminance, I think. Luminance. And then for the US brand, we have, so it's wax based and it's Prisma Color, and it's USA. Now, I mean, obviously there are many more brands, but these ones are the top ones. Okay. Now, I'm going to close the chat box here. Okay, so just before we move on to the watercolor exercise, what you could do is just draw the head, the tulip, the head of the tulip here, the flower here underneath the circle, and we are going to do a little bit of shading. Okay, so I'll just give you a few minutes to do that. And again, we are basically we're going to use 2 pencils to do the shading and work around the white of the paper for the highlighted areas. So just trying to fix my page. Is the image okay, Heidi, or is it out of focus?
No, we're all good. It's very focused now. Perfect. Okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead, and then if you need more time to draw the plant, we can do that later on, okay? So where's my image? So just going to take the image here. So again, you can take the colored image or the or the black and white image. I'll take the colored image. You might be able to see it better here. Okay, so as you all know, we are going from dark to light. So my drawing here, I'm going to start from the left side of the tulip, and then I'm going to identify the lighter tones. So for example, I've got some highlights around here, and then I've got a darker line here. And again, you know, don't forget, we are working from a flat image. So it's a bit more difficult, but we're going to try to give a bit of a volume to the tulip here. Okay, so I'm going to use actually my HB pencil and then tidy up the line here. So my pencil mark here is slightly darker, and then I'm going to ease off the pencil mark to make it lighter, and then just to emphasize the changes in the shadows, I'm going to lean a little bit more on the line here and then ease off the line. Okay, so you know where the changes in tone are taking place here. Okay, so now I want to give the idea that there is a curve, the petal here is curved. So same technique, just going to use a small ellipsis and then work around the highlighted areas using the negative space. Okay. And here. So and same thing, you know, lean a little bit more on the paper to create darker tones, and then just work lighter as you come closer to the lighter section of the flower. And then same around here. So slightly darker. And then as we come closer to the highlights, just work very, very lightly, and you can move your hand further back. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same around here. There is a bit of shadow. So I'm just going to work on this area for this session here. So slightly darker here and then lighter. And then follow the shape of the lines. Okay. And then I'm going to apply deeper tones here. So once you apply your dark mid-tones and your lighter tones, you can use a lighter pencil and tidy up the surface of the paper. And what I'm also doing is I'm using the negative space to create the veins. So sometimes, I mean, you can create the veins by using a line, but if you have to double up the veins, instead of drawing two veins, you can draw one line and then use the negative space to create the other side of the vein. So I'm just going to show you. See here, for example, we've got a line. So instead of drawing, let's say, another line here, I'm going to use the negative space, leave a tiny gap to create the vein. Okay, can you all see? Hope you can see okay. Let me know if you need me to zoom in, okay?
I think the angle you have is perfect because you can see both the drawing and what you're doing.
Perfect. No, I'm aware that you can see the shadow of my hand, so I don't know if you can see okay. But hopefully it's fine. And then I'm just going to apply a slightly deeper tone here. Yeah, okay. And then what I'll do is I'll take my lighter pencil. I'm using a 3H here and just tidy up. So you want to get rid of the lines. You want to make sure that the changes are gradual. Okay. The other thing you can do is you can use your 2B pencil, and if you want to apply a slightly deeper tone here, just to lift, to emphasize the shadow and lift this petal. So see, I've applied a little bit of 2B here, tiny touch of dark, and then I'm going back with my HB pencil, and then I'm softening the edges here. Okay. Now, I hope you can all see okay, and it's just to give you an idea on how to do some shading. I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop here for the shading. Any questions so far? Anyone? Are you all okay? No? Okay. So now we are moving to watercolor painting, or I need to know how many of you are using acrylics, because the technique is completely different. Or do you all have watercolor paints? No? Okay. So I can see on my screen. Can you see the top, the colors here, Heidi? Yeah.
I can see the 5 colors circles, but we can't really see the squares above that. Now down a bit. No, now we can see the circles.
I just needed to lower down my page. Okay.
We have one person who's using, so far, who's using, Laura's using acrylics.
Okay, so for those who are using acrylics, obviously the approach is completely different. So obviously if you're using acrylics, you know how to use them. Instead of using water, so with watercolor paints, we are not using white, okay? We're using the white of the paper for the lighter tones. With acrylics, you are using white to make the color paler, okay? So it's really up to you to use as much white as you need to make your color paler. And also for the tonal value here, the person who is using acrylic will go from dark to light. For those of us who are using watercolor, we'll be painting from light to dark, okay? So again, for acrylic paints, try to prepare the different tones of green. We're going to do the same with the watercolor paints, okay? So I'm going to use a color here. I'm just going to do a bit of a introduction to color before I start this exercise. So as you might know, we have 2 or 3 groups of colors. So we've got the warm colors, the cool colors, and the more neutral colors, which are the mixture between the warm and the cool colors, okay? So I don't know if you've all seen a color wheel, but the color wheel is divided in 2, okay? So on top you will have yellows and orange and reds, so that will, they will be your warm tones. And then on the other half of the color wheel, we will have the cooler tones, so purples and blues and greens. However, within the warm tones, the warm colors, we have cool colors, and within the cool colors, we have the warm colors too. Okay, so a bit of a question here. So I've got cadmium yellow on my left, and then I've got lemon yellow on the right. Which one is a warm yellow? Which one is a cool yellow? Anyone?
For me, the one on your left is the warm. The one on your right is the cold.
Okay. Anyone else?
Michael says lemon is cool.
Yeah. So yes, lemon is cool.
So Marcel, yeah.
Yeah. And I believe all the cadmium pigments are warm pigments, okay? And then we also have a color that is, I love using actually in botanical arts, is the cadmium lemon, okay? So it's warm and cool. It's the mixture of the 2 of them. If you don't have cadmium lemon, what you do is you take your cadmium paint and the lemon paint, and you're trying to create your own cadmium lemon. I mean, obviously some pigments are stronger than others, so it's not a question of adding 50% of cadmium yellow and 50% of cadmium lemon. It's really trying to find the balance to create the proper color. So the lemon pigments are very light and delicate, as opposed to the cadmium pigments. They're stronger pigments, okay? Now, and then we also have our blues. I mean, as you might all know, the blues are cool colors. Now I'm showing you here the ultramarine blue. Is it warm or is it cool? Anyone?
Oh, I think
That's difficult.
warm.
If you don't know, you just guess.
Oh, Monica's saying,
I think warm.
and we have Michael says warm, Ruth thinks cool. Wiltrud thinks warm.
Yeah, it's warm. It's a warm blue. There are very few warm blues actually, but there was a whole controversy about the ultramarine pigment. So it was warm, and then it became cool, and then it became warm, and now we left it warm. Okay, so it is a warm. It's a lovely warm pigment. I find it quite difficult to apply at times. I don't know, for those who are used to work with ultramarine pigments, it can get quite grainy, okay? The yellow pigments are lovely. They're very easy to apply, and you'll see when we do the color chart grid. And then we've got other blues, like, for example, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, indigo. I mean, you name it, there's so many blues out there, okay? So let's take our sap green here. do you all have ready greens? I call the straight adult tube greens the ready greens. Another thing you have to keep in mind, never use a ready green or green that is straight out of the tube to paint your plants if you're doing botanical illustration. It's just going to look artificial. You always need to mix it with a second or a third color. And sometimes you need to add a touch of red or pink, a tiny, tiny little touch to mute the green. Okay? So I've got my plate here. So I've got a bit of a sap green. And then I've got some my brushes. So again, draw the same little squares, 6 squares here. And then once you're ready to go, I'm just going to show you, I also have 2 jars. So 1 jar for clear glazing and 1 jar for my colors. Okay, some people use also a 3rd jar for lighter colors and darker colors. Okay, so I'll just give you a minute here and then we'll start. And I just realized the time again. So again, if you don't have time to draw what I'll do is let's start immediately. You can just add little touches of green on the page. Okay, so just to speed up a little bit. So my plate is here. So I need to divide this color into sections. So I'm going to prepare the color. So make sure you're wetting the brush. I'm using here a number 4 brush. Number 3 is fine too. And then I also have my kitchen towel paper. I'm using this in case if I have too much water, okay, on the brush. And then mix it really well. Take a bit of paint and then move it on the side here. And then what you need to do is dilute. Take a bit of paint again, move it on the side and dilute it as much as you can, okay? And then I always have a little piece of paper to try my paint, okay? So once you've done this, and once you're happy with the transparency of your color, you can apply the first layer here, okay? Which should be off-white, basically. Now, and then what you need to do is for the second one, it's slightly darker. So again, try your paint here. I might add a little bit more water here. And then apply the layer on the second square. So you can, if you want a really nice flat surface, see what I'm doing with my brush? I'm going left to right and just use the tip of your brush to tidy up the edges, okay? And I'm going to wet my brush a little bit more, not too much because we're working on a small surface and we don't want to go out of the lines here. And then applying the layer here. I believe this technique is called dipping in watercolor.
What is the name of the pink color that you have?
I'm using sap green. So again, if you don't have sap green, and if you don't have a pure green, just mix the blue and yellow together, okay? And then same here, just slightly darker. And then I'm applying, sorry, I'll just show you here. I don't know if you can see, I'm just going to zoom out of it. Applying a bit more paint. So always make sure to prepare your brush really well, okay? And then, see, I'm starting from the like a bit further away from the lines here, and then just tidy up using the tip of your brush. And then for the darker, for the last square, you want it as opaque as possible, okay? And same thing, left to right. Okay. Now, so this is again a really handy exercise to learn how to control your brush, the amount of water you have, and also the amount of paint that you need to use, okay? Because you will be working again from light to dark. So what I've done here, I've created underneath a little grid. I'm going to show you very quickly because I would like to move on to start painting my flower, and I'd like us to start working with collage. Where we're a bit of a rush here. So usually, I mean, what you do is take all your different blues, okay? So we are going to place our blues, for example, on top of the grid, and then we're going to place our yellows on the left of the grid here, okay? So I am creating here a color, a green color chart. And then what you can also do is just once you apply your colors, write down the name of your color. And this is a grid, a color chart you can always go back to, okay? So once you've created this, what you do is, for example, if you're working with real leaves, is you take your leaf and then you place it beside your color chart, and you know which combination to use to identify the green in your leaf. I mean, obviously you can do that with different colors. Every time I buy, if I get a new color, I create a color chart for it, okay? So I'm going to apply my colors here and use a slightly smaller brush. Number 3, here we go. So I'm using a number 3 here. So I'm starting with a bit of ultramarine blue, my favorite one, not. And then just apply a thin layer like this. Okay. And let it dry. If I keep going over the surface of the paper while the paint is still drying, I'm going to get some unwanted lines, and I'll be lifting the paint. So once you've applied your paint, just let it merge and let it dry, okay? Then clean your brush, dry your brush, and then you can apply a second blue. So I'm using here cerulean blue, which is like a baby blue, so it's quite bright. So what I'm going to do also is leave a tiny little gap between the two blues, just to see the two colors better here. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to leave it here. I mean, obviously what you can do on your own time is work with whatever blues and yellows you have, okay? So now I'm going to move on to the yellows. So I'm going to use a cadmium yellow here. So cadmium yellows, you've got cadmium yellow pale, and cadmium yellow deep. So it's just different tones of yellows. So clean your brush really, really well, or if you want, you can change your brush. Take a bit of yellow and then prepare your brush. Just gonna add a touch of water here. So as you can see, I'm trying to create, when I'm applying the color, I'm applying a mid-tone. I don't want it too opaque nor too light. So just a layer here. So the yellows are so much easier to apply. There we go. And then I'm going to clean my brush. And then I've got some cadmium lemon here. Clean your brush really, really well. Prepare your brush. And then apply the paint. Okay. So once you have your 4 colors here, and again, on your own time, you can add more yellows and more blues, we are going to merge them and create our greens. So by mixing the cadmium yellow with the ultramarine blue, I'll be creating a warm green, okay? So I don't know if you can see. Always start, when you're mixing 2 colors, always start with the more delicate colors. So I'm taking a bit of a cadmium yellow here. Okay, bring it onto the plate. Clean your brush, dry your brush, and then take a touch of blue, of the ultramarine blue, and mix it really well. Now my green here is still a little bit too bright, so what I need to do is apply a tiny touch of blue here. So the more blue you add, the cooler the green becomes. The more yellow you add, the brighter the green is. So once you have your green, just apply it here. Okay. Yeah. And then once it's done, just let it dry. And then you can mix the cadmium yellow with the cerulean blue and the other blues, and same with the lemon. Okay. So I'm just going to leave it here. Any questions? Are you all okay?
We have one question in from Jane wanting to know, would you have color notebooks? So I suppose creating color palettes.
Yes, I mean, I've got a full notebook. It's actually at home, and where I keep all my color charts. And I always make sure to take notes of all the colors I'm working with. And I'm also writing the name of the brand, because a lemon yellow in a Schminke or Winsor Newton would be different from a lemon yellow, for example, from a Sennelier brand. So you can also write the name of the brand. There's some slight differences. Okay, so I'm going to take the original image here and zoom out. So what I've done here is I've created a specific color chart for this project. Okay, so I've used circles. You can use, again, squares or triangles. It doesn't matter. I just use circles. So the way you start is by applying your main colors. So here I've got permanent rose, and then I'm also using a ready color, a ready green, which is the sap green. And then I also have the ultramarine blue for this project. And then here I also wanted to create a cooler green. So I've used some sap green with a touch of ultramarine blue. And then I used the sap green with a touch of cadmium lemon yellow to make the green brighter. Okay, and then we have the yellow here, the pure yellow. Then as you can see, I've put numbers on top of each circle. So for example, I've also created my grays, my colored grays, and my colors for the shadows. Okay, so here you can see some golden brown colors. So what I did is I've used number 5, which is the combination of the sap green plus cadmium lemon yellow, plus number 1, tiny touch of the permanent rose. If you, depending on the amount of paint you're adding, the color, the result will change. Okay, so red and green makes brown. Okay. Now, I can also see touches of purple, pale purple. So obviously you can use a ready purple. And for those who are using acrylic, you can mix your purple with the white, and it's the same with the pink. So here I've mixed number 1, which is permanent rose, plus number 4, which is ultramarine blue. Okay, and then I've created my colored grays. The colored grays are the grays you see in nature. They're not the black and white grays. Okay, you can create hundreds of them. They're absolutely beautiful. If you want to create shadows for the water, if you want to create a snow scene for the clouds, etc., you need to create your colored grays. So here I've used number 2, which is sap green, and number 8, which is the purple combination. Again, if you want to make the gray grayer, just add a little bit more blue to your combination, to your mix. Okay, and then here I've used the number 9 combination, which is the previous gray, with a touch of the ultramarine blue to make it bluer. Okay, so just if you can take notes of that, don't worry too much about not being able to create those tones now, but we can just start painting our main colors here for the final exercise, and then we move on to the collage. Okay, Heidi, will we be able to go over time?
That's okay, yeah, you continue. Yeah, that's fine, Ida. And Marcel says, apparently the human eye can see more than 40 shades of grey.
Really? And if you train more, you can see over 100. Thank you for the info. So what I'm going to do is basically go back to the colors I have and use 2 brushes. So I want to use my 2 jars, one to do the clear glaze, meaning that I'm going to apply section. Can you see the full plant? Yeah.
If you can move the plant over a little bit, if you put it over the green squares, then we can see the plant and the where you're.
Okay?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to glaze the plant section by section. Before I do that, I need to prepare my washes first, because if I glaze the surface of the paper and then go to prepare my washes, the surface of the paper will dry and I will have to do it again. Okay, so here I said I was going to use the permanent rose. So I've got my permanent rose here beside the alizarin crimson. Don't worry about this. So just gonna prepare the color. And then another thing I forgot to say, I use baby whites, not great for the environment, but they're very handy if you're in a hurry, just to clean your plate. Okay.
Jane wants to know, do you have wet paper before you apply the paint?
It's that's what we're going to do now. So I mean, when I guess when you say wet paper, are you referring to wetting the full paper, or are you referring to wetting just a section of the paper? So because it makes a difference. Don't forget, there is a big difference between watercolor painting, when you have to prepare the page, and then when in botanical, when you want to work wet in wet washes, you need to glaze very lightly the surface of the section you want to work on. I mean, again, there's so many different techniques, and it's a very thin glaze, and I will show you that now. So as you can see here, I'm preparing my paint. Okay. And once this is done, I'm going to take another brush, not too big, and then dip it in the clear water. And then, oh yeah, before you do that, where's my potty rubber? Here. Before you do that, I mean, I'm going to keep the lines as dark as here, because for you to see. However, if it's just for my own sake, for my own project, I would lift the lines, because what happens is when you mix graphite pencils with watercolor paint, it goes gray and it goes muddy. Okay, but I'll keep it slightly darker here so everybody can see. So I've glazed, I've prepared my brush, and I'm going to glaze the surface of the tulip head. So use the tip of your brush for the edges of the petals. Very, very light glaze. And then what you do is you lift your page and you put it at your eye level and just have a look at if you have the glaze, if the glaze has covered the full surface. So I can see here that I've missed a bit here. Now make sure not to apply too much water because it's just going to come out of the lines. Okay. So once I've done this, then I can apply a bit of the pink washes. So the base of the petals are darker. Okay. So what you do is just drop in a few washes here, just randomly, and see I'm working around the veins. Okay. Then clean your brush, dry your brush, and then what you do is just pull the paint here.
And we just have one question come in. The glazing, do you mean watering? Is it a light paint or is it just the water? What do you mean by glaze?
Clear water, yeah. So that's called a clear glaze. It's just to prepare the surface of the paper with a clear glaze. And then, yeah, just bring down the paint here and then tidy up. And then what you can also do is if you want to make the pink slightly darker while it's still wet, so prepare your brush and then just drop in the washes here. Okay. And then use the tip of your brush and just tidy up and soften the edges. Okay. And then we can reapply a few touches here. Now, the room I'm in is quite warm, so it dries very, very quickly. So I don't want to interfere too much while the paint is drying. So what I'm going to do is apply another glaze, another light glaze here, and then just drop in a few more touches of pink in the brush. And then use the tip of your brush and tidy up. Okay. And then let's do that for the full flower here. So we'll apply a few more pinks. Clean the brush, dry the brush, and then tidy up. And then use the tip of your brush and let you go over the lines here. And see, I'm leaving a bit of a white of the paper for the highlights. Okay. And then what you can also do is just apply deeper pinks here. Clean the brush and then just soften the edges. Okay, so as you can see, I'm using the tip of the brush and I'm changing the direction of my brush strokes here. Now, and I'm going to make this one slightly darker. So what I'll do is I'll apply a bit of a pink. Clean the brush, dry the brush, just bring out the pink.
We have one question in from Anne. What size brush are you using?
Here I'm using a number 4, but you can also use a number 3 or a smaller brush. Don't use tiny little 0 brushes when you start painting. It's the smaller brushes, the finer brushes are for to use at the end of the painting to apply the finer details. Okay, so what I've done here is I've mixed a touch of the sap green with the pink to create a bit of a shadow. Okay, now, so what I'm going to do is apply different greens for the stem and the leaves, and then we can start with the collage. Okay, now, so again, I'm preparing my green wash. Mix it really well. And what I'm going to do also is to prepare a cooler green mix. So take a bit of the sap green, move it on the side. And then I'll add a bit of ultramarine blue here. And mix it really well. As we can see on the original image, there are some much cooler tones. All right. Okay, so same thing here. Clean your second brush really well, and then just apply a clear glaze on the stem. Okay. And then take the sap green. So what I see here is on the image, the light source looks like it's coming from the right of the stem here. So what you do is make sure you don't have too much water on the stem, on your brush, sorry. So just drop in the green here. Clean your brush, and what we're going to do now is clean it really well. And see, I'm shaping my brush, and I'm going to work the other way and just lift the highlights. Okay, so I'm pushing the paint just on the on the right side of the stem. Okay, you can do that when the surface of the paper is still wet. Now, and then I've dropped in a few more touches of green, and then use the tip of your brush and tidy up. And then I can lift a little bit more here, but it's still wet. Use a clear glaze. And then I can also see a bit of a dark on the left. So I'm just going to use my dark wash and use the tip of your brush. And then just very lightly apply, as if you were drawing with your brush. Apply the line here. Okay, clean your brush, dry your brush, and then lift using the tip of your brush. So these are the initial layers. I mean, obviously, this is not a pure botanical illustration session. We would be working with a reed plant, and then we would be working with drier techniques towards the end, okay? So I have this here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this, and then we move on to the collage. Is that okay? Yeah.
Sounds great.
So here I'm just going to what I'm going to do here, because the surface of the because the stem is quite small, I'm going to apply my green wash directly without applying any clear glaze. The clear glazes are really handy if you're working on wider, larger surfaces. And then clean your brush, dry your brush, just make sure that you've got the points of your brush like this, and then just lift the middle here, just to create the highlights. Okay, and then if you want stronger highlights, just do it again. Okay, And then we do the same on the other side. I'm going to use a slightly cooler blue. Same thing. Very lightly. Clean your brush, dry your brush, and then lift the highlights very lightly here. Okay, and then I'll apply a bit of a pink. So for here, I'm going to glaze with clear water. So just very lightly here. Again, make sure you're not going over the lines. And use the tip of your brush to tidy up, just to go around the outlines. And then I will drop in the pinks here. Now I can feel I've got a little bit too much water, so what I'll do immediately is just to dry my brush and then just tidy up very quickly. Okay, and then I can lift here and then apply a few more pinks. And then same thing, just move the pink around. And you see I'm leaving enough highlights because I know that I will be applying the shadows and deeper tones, and I will be coming closer to the highlights. That's why I'm leaving a little bit more space than needed. And just tidy up here. And then I'm just going to apply, mix the rose with a touch of the sap green, just to add a few shadows, just to make the base of the flower slightly darker here, a tiny bit. And then if you want to make it grayer, just apply a little bit more blue. Okay. So same thing on the other side. And then we start the collage. So clear glaze, very lightly, and then apply the washes, the base of the bud here. Use the tip of the brush. And same here. Clean the brush, dry your brush, and then tidy up. Yeah. And then if you want to make the base of the flower slightly darker, just drop in a few deeper pink washes here. Okay, and then I will do the same around here again. Okay, any questions so far? Are you all okay? Can you all follow me?
I think everyone's quietly concentrating.
Is everybody here? Just gonna apply some deeper tones and then tidy up. Okay. Now, so let's have a bit of fun with the collage. I mean, obviously the idea is to finish the full plant. You paint the full plant and then you can start doing the collage, but I think we're okay for now. So you can keep the image if you want to. I'm just going to place it in front of my drawing so you won't be able to see it. So the different materials we're using here. So you can go for a specific theme. I'm going to go for a human plant hybrid theme. Okay. So what I've done is I took a couple of magazines. Okay, and I've cut out different body parts. Okay, and I'm going to create pieces of the different parts of the plants by mixing it with hair and different body parts. Now, another thing I want to show you is, for those who are comfortable using any editing programs on like Photoshop, or you can also use very basic editing programs in your laptop. Is what I've done here is I've done some drawings and I've included myself, and then I used a plastic bottle here and then some collage, and I've created this image. And I used this image to create the drawing that is behind in the background behind Monica. So this is how I've created my drawing. So you can really have fun with using different editing programs and scan your work and print your work and do the drawing and scan it again and print it again. Okay, so I've also created much paler tones using my computer. And there's so many interesting patterns you can find in magazines here, for example. And what you can do is you can cut out a few shapes and then draw them again. So you will have a mixture of flowers, of plants, with mixture of collage or photos directly from magazines or from your own collection. Okay, so what I also have is you can collect anything really. I've got like a, what is this, a clementine or a bag here, so you can use the thread here. It's great for, I would say, sewing. You can use this. I also have some plant materials, weeds, and then plastic bottles, for example. I mean, you can use anything that you want, and you don't need to buy any materials, okay? So what I've also done is, I'm going to show you that now you can take a plastic bottle and create and cut out your leaves, basically, okay? So I'm going to do that now. So we can, do you all have a pair of scissors with your plastic bottle? Yeah? So take the plastic bottle and then just cut it out. And this is when it gets messy, so I'm just going to protect my, my drawing here. So I hope you've got a lot of space at home. Otherwise, just work on the floor if you can. So, so you've got a sheet of plastic here, and then just with your scissor, just create different leaves. Okay, some smaller, some wider, some bigger, and you can use any plastic really. I mean, this plastic here is really soft. Okay. And what you can do is you can use a needle, and then with a thread from the bag here, you can sew the leaf on your drawing. Okay, so I have these guys here, and then what I would like to do is to use, for example, some hair here. Okay, so I've got my cutting mat here, and then I've got a scalpel, okay, or a craft knife. This one, as you can see, the end is very small, and it also moves around, so it's quite loose, and it's great for creating curves, basically. So what I'd like to do is, I mean, I don't like the line here or the shape, so I'd like to make it look more natural and lighter. So I'm just going to remove some of the paper here and try to make the lines as thin as possible. Yeah. Sorry about the dog. He's a little devil. He's not mine. Now, you can see here, I don't know if you can see closer, do you see the little lines that I've created? Obviously, you know, you can make them longer and or thinner or thicker, depending on the material you're using. And I'm going to remove some unwanted shape here, just make it slightly shorter. Okay, so what you can do is just you know, prepare a few elements here, just a few sections. For example, here you've got a bit of a human skin, so you can just cut it out now, like this. Here, and you can create a leaf like this also. Okay, and then so I've got my leaves, I've got a few shapes, and then I've got, you can do the same with eyes. I think I've got a few eyes, I've got some legs. And then the other thing you can do is, for example, like I said, you can take a piece of paper and then take a pencil and then just draw this. Okay, so what you can do, you can draw the outline, so you can make it smaller actually, and very simple like this. Really simple outlines, and then I'm just going to lift some of the lines here. And then you can paint it. So I'm going to use the same colors that I've used for the flower. So I've got a bit of a permanent rose, and then just apply a few washes. And here. Clean your brush, dry your brush, and then just tidy up. Okay, so it nearly looks like a tulip when you look at it. Okay, so and then what you can do is just cut it out. Cut it this way, that way. So as you can see here, I'm just placing, you know, you can place your leaf this way and then apply different shapes. I mean, you can even create the stem using the, what is this? It's an arm. You can make it much slimmer here. And like I have a hand here with a bit of a pink nail varnish. Like you could easily cut that out and add it as part of the plant. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm creating a hybrid between humans and plant, and I'm also using plastic. It's just to highlight the fact that plastic is absolutely everywhere, and the overconsumption of plastic. And that plastic, you know, you've got those microbits that are in the bottom of the sea, of the ocean, and then what happens? The fish eats the plastic and we eat the fish. So it's absolutely, my whole vision, my whole idea is seeing plastic as part of our environment, and that it's growing together with plants and with anything that is organic. So should I just leave it here, or?
Thank you so much, Ida. Sorry for rushing you at the end. We could really have spent at least another 2 hours doing this, because it's so enjoyable, and you had only got to the meat of it as well. So hopefully we'll be able to put on something else similar, because I think going into the collage using recycled materials will be really, really interesting. Yeah. But thank you all for joining us today. We would really like to see all your finished products. So if you could, I dropped an email address into the chat there. It's chesterbeattyonline@cbl.ie. And we would love to see what you've been doing, and we can pass on some of your images to Beatna as well and let them see how you got on, and hopefully maybe put them up on our social media as well. I've also popped in the survey that you were sent out through an email, so if you could also fill that out, that would be great. Beatna are trying to gather that information and they'd really like that back. We have plenty more events coming up. We have a live harp performance next week on the 19th, a live adults workshop. The next one is on the 19th of June, and that's on fashion illustrations, and they can be booked right now on our website, chesterbeatty.ie, on the What's On. And finally, just a reminder that the Chester Beatty is open again to the public. So if you're located in Dublin, planning a trip, please do pop in. We'd love to see you. All our events will continue online for the time being, but our next exhibition will be opening on May 28th. and we'd love you to come in and see that in person. So thank you all again, and we hope to see you all very, very soon.